Hello everyone. Welcome to the 41st session on Current Affairs 2020 Economy and Banking Concepts. So I'm sure by now you have gone through number of classes and you have some idea about the types of questions we can come across in the upcoming bank exams. Now, in this test also, this is a mix-up of mostly current affairs based question, and there are few questions which are based on, static knowledge about banking and economic affairs. So let's start with the first question. Which is the oldest central bank in the world? Now, as you know that the central banks are what? Central banks are the apex body of a country which is responsible for the regulation of banking sector or financial sector in that country, and also they are responsible for issuance of currency. So these two are the primary responsibilities of central bank in a particular country. Now, from country to country, this responsibility may vary. Like in case of RBI, the responsibility goes way beyond these two things, issuing currency and regulation of the banking sector or the financial sector in the country. So coming to this question, which is the oldest central bank in the world? The answer is option number 1, Sveriges Bank. This is actually the central bank of Sweden. Option number 1 is the answer. The oldest central bank. This is the Central Bank of Sweden. The head office is in Stockholm. Head office is in Stockholm. This is also in short known as Riksbank. If you look at the website, it says Riksbank. So at present, this is known as in short Riksbank. Rest of the banks, I think from the name itself, you can identify these are the national or central banks of which country. However, knowing the governors of each of these national banks would be quite a difficult task. Generally, if at all it has been asked in previous years, it is only asked about Federal Reserve, which is the central bank of USA. Maybe you can go through UK and max to max China. So this is something we would like to move on. Let's go to the next question. Which of the following is not a type of inflation? Now again, this is a economy based question and static question. Very important because inflation is again related with our monetary policy. It is one of the most important parameter of economy, and as we know, inflation is a component which is a must in any economic growth. So to the economy to grow, there has to be some inflation, and without inflation we cannot have the economic growth. Now let's understand what is this inflation in nutshell. I'm sure many of you know it. It is the rise in price in the general commodities and services in continuous basis. So I'm not getting into the classical definition of it. To understand it, it is the rise in price of general commodities and services on a continuous basis. Now if you recall some of the questions we discussed in the previous classes, in India inflation is generally measured with CPI, Consumer Price Index. However, there is one more parameter or index called WPI, Wholesale Price Index. These two are primary tools to measure inflation. In case of wholesale price index, mostly commodities are taken into consideration, whereas in case of CPI, along with general commodities, there are some services like transportation, healthcare are also taken under consideration to calculate how the prices are increasing. Now, what is this different types of inflation? Now, the types of inflation, to understand, we need to understand the index, because without understanding the index, it is quite difficult to understand the types of inflation. So, as I said, the index So for every index, we generally take a year as a base year. Base year is the year where the index is considered as 100. So presently in India, for WPI and for CPI, the overall CPI is 2011-12. The financial year 2011-12, the index is considered as 100. Now suppose the next year, the calculated value of the index turns out to be 107. Please understand, in 2011-12, the base year, the value of the index is considered as 100. Obviously, the 100 is related with some other figure which is calculated by considering the prices of all goods and services. Now, next year also, on the same time, suppose in the month of May, the prices of all these goods and services which are under the umbrella of CPI calculation is calculated, and that price after calculation gives the value of the index as 107. So then we can say from last year to this year the inflation is 7%, because last year it was 100, this year it is 107, so the inflation is 7%. Right? Now if you look at the number or types of these inflations, if the annual growth rate of the index, let me repeat it, if the annual growth rate of the index is 2 to 3%, then we consider it as a creeping inflation. We consider it as a creeping inflation, 2 to 3%, which is very much comfortable. We can consider this type of inflation. If you know that at present the government of India along with RBI has decided a target of inflation as 4% with a plus minus 2% margin. That means the government and RBI decided that till 2011, if the inflation is between 2% to 6% with a median value of 4%, it is okay, considerable. But if it goes beyond this, either of the two sides, it is going to affect our economy and we need to take some steps. So coming back, if the inflation rate is 2 to 3%, then it is considered as creeping inflation. If it is from 3% to 7%, from 3% to 7%, this is called walking inflation. So in creeping inflation, the inflation is less, the government need not do as such lot of things, just need to maintain the status quo. RBI is also very comfortable. When it is in walking inflation, yes, there is an indication. If it is on the higher side, 7%, then RBI can take care of it by bringing some changes in its tool of monetary policy, maybe by increasing the repo rate, or maybe increasing marginal standing facility, or by increasing CRR, SLR. So this type of changes RBI can take if the rate of inflation is something around 6%, 7%. So if the inflation or the index is increasing at a rate of 3 to 7% annually, then we call it a walking inflation. Then it goes to galloping inflation. In galloping inflation, so galloping itself is like it's going fast. Creeping is slow. Creeping and galloping are two opposite words. Creeping means slow and galloping means it's going, jumping. It's like a fast. Now galloping inflation, the rate of inflation is 8% to 10%, 8 to 10%. So this is an alarming situation. So government in this situation tries to control it, and by bringing some measures, some changes in fiscal policy, some changes in taxations, and obviously RBI also takes some steps, this can be still controlled by the government or maybe the central bank of a country. Whereas hyperinflation is a situation where the rate of inflation is quite high. In hyperinflation, it is mostly due to the market forces, where the government has nothing to do as such. Government cannot do as such because maybe the demand of a product has gone very high, or the supply of the product has gone very down, This type of situations are called hyperinflation, where the government, you can say, this become helpless, and no short-term measures are available for hyperinflations. So only in long term this can or may be controlled. So these are hyperinflation. So these four are the different types of inflation, but there is nothing called jumping inflation as such. There is no such inflation or type of inflation which has been named as jumping inflation. So answer for this question is jumping inflation. Okay. Apart from that, you can talk about, there are some other two terminologies. One is called suppressed inflation. Suppressed inflation means where inflation is suppressed, it is controlled by government through its fiscal policy or by monetary policy. So this type of inflation is known as suppressed inflation. And then there is one more term which has appeared in bank exam number of times called stagflation. Stagflation is like where the price increases and remains at that particular level. So it's a persistent rise in price, but then no jobs are there in the economy, no consumers are there in the economy, and it keeps on increasing in the price. It's just persistently increasing. So then we call it stagflation. So which is also not a good condition for the economy. So inflation, the opposite word is deflation, and also we have one more word called stagflation. We come across this word in SSC as well as in bank exams. Okay. Let us move to the next question. So answer for this question is jumping inflation. Next question. Which was the first Indian commercial bank to set up a separate merchant banking division in 1972? Indian commercial banks to set up a separate merchant banking division. Now, what is this merchant banking? Merchant banking or investment banking, or you can say it's kind of a synonymous thing. So what they do, they are for underwriting, loan services, financial advising, fundraising, and for merger and acquisition consultations for large corporates. So let me give an example. Suppose recently we have heard that this Facebook has invested into Jio, or maybe Walmart has taken some stake or majority stake in Flipkart. So this type of tie-ups where a foreign company outside India is coming to India and buying some stake or majority stake of an Indian company. So in this type of transaction, there has to be a middle person who will facilitate this entire process, and these are done by investment banks or merchant banks. They also arrange loans, overseas loans for the big corporates, and they also help them to invest into different share markets or maybe portfolio management of high net worth individuals. And this type of operations comes under merchant banking or investment banking. They are not conventional banking activities what we generally see. It is entirely different than them, and mostly these are related with valuation of shares, acquisitions. So in that way, in India, merchant banking operations are regulated by SEBI. These are not directly regulated by RBI, because this is mostly related with the acquisitions, mergers, underwriting, and maybe tying up or merge up two companies. However, there are roles of other bodies also, but basic operations and the regulations, permissions are issued by SEBI, that is Securities Exchange Board of India. So in India, the first Indian company to start the operation in 1972 is State Bank of India. The first Indian company to start, it is State Bank of India. And if you look at one of the biggest of the investment banks in the world is like, you can heard of like JP Morgan, then Citibank, then Barclays, They are one of the biggest of the companies in merchant banking sector. Okay, let's move to the next question. Which of the following is or not true about para-banking services? So what is a para-banking service? Para-banking services, apart from regular banking operations or general banking operations. So when I say general banking operation, what is a general banking operation? Accepting deposits, forwarding loan, providing payment facilities like checks, demand draft. This comes under general banking operations. Apart from that, we know that banks also perform businesses like insurance business, then portfolio management, then gold loan. If you look at, not all banks are there to offer gold loans. Gold loans are generally offered by individual NBFC like IIFL, Muthoot Finance, Manappuram Gold Loan. I'm sure you have heard of this type of things. But if you go to a State Bank of India, you may not get a gold loan. So if you see, this gold loan sector is slightly different. This gold loan business, banks can perform, but for that they have to make a separate department or a subsidiary. So there are operations where banks can do by forming a separate department or a subsidiary. For example, mutual fund business, insurance business. If you see, SBI set up a subsidiary called SBI Life, and they are into this business of insurance. SBI Capital, which are into maybe share market trading or fund management business, or pension fund management business, or mutual fund business. So like that, they have set up a separate division or a separate subsidiary to perform the operations which are not part of general banking operation. So let me go once again. Which are general banking operation? Accepting deposits, forwarding loans, withdrawal facility, payment services. Apart from this, if we talk about insurance, mutual funds, portfolio management, fund management, underwriting bonds of PSUs, investment in venture capital, pension fund management, these are considered as para-banking activities. Now, how a bank can participate into para-banking activities? Mostly they can do it by forming a separate division or by forming a subsidiary. Alright, now this para-banking activities are in India still regulated by RBI. A part of it may be regulated by SEBI. For example, a bank is offering a Demat account. Demat is dematerialized account. Now that component may be coming under the purview of SEBI, but most of the para-banking activities comes under or the licensing and everything should come from RBI. So the answer, which of the following is or not true about para-banking services? Under para-banking, one cannot offer current account facility. Yes, it cannot be, because current account facility is a part of general banking activity. A depositor can't issue any checks against the amount in its para-banking savings scheme. For example, if you look at a person has kept certain amount of money in his Demat account, and that Demat account is however linked with his savings account, but the amount which is locked in Demat account, against that amount he cannot issue any check. So that is true. Para-banking includes activities such as insurance business, portfolio management services. Absolutely correct. In para-banking services, banks must follow the whole set of guidelines as given by SEBI. As I said, no, it is not entirely of SEBI. The answer is option number 4. So that is not correct. Option number 4 is the right answer. Let us move to the next question. Which of the following is true about minimum reserve system? We studied in one of our earlier classes. Minimum reserve system is the system RBI follows to issue the currency notes in the system. It's like a reserve. Earlier it used to use proportional reserve system. It has been changed by minimum reserve system. In this, it has to keep 200 crores minimum as gold or gold bullion and government securities. Foreign currency, forex. So out of this 100 and 200 crores, minimum 115 crores has to be in terms of gold or gold bullion, and the rest should be in terms of foreign currency. Foreign currency reserve used under minimum reserve system must be kept at issue department. That is also correct. Under the minimum reserve system, RBI can issue unlimited amount of currency. That is also correct. Minimum reserve system does not have any practical connection with the amount of new currencies issued by RBI. Yes, that is also correct. So answer is option number 5. Okay. See, you can look at the name itself, where it's minimum reserve. So they are keeping a reserve as a kind of a promise, like anything happens in the system, so it can use this reserve for converting it into further currency. If you look at any other reserve, CRR or SLR, how much deposit the bank is accepting or how much loans the bank is giving, it is not as such directly related with CRR and SLR. This is the minimum reserve or SLR a bank has to maintain for, tough situation, unexpected situation. Similarly, RBI also contains this minimum reserve system at unexpected situation. In case of SLR, banks maintain SLR in terms of what? In terms of government security, gold or liquid cash. Similarly, in case of minimum reserve system, RBI has to maintain minimum 200 crores in terms of what? Either gold, gold bullion or forex reserve. Alright, let's move to the next one. Answer is option number 5. What is the animal on the insignia of RBI? So if you look at the insignia of RBI, this is how the insignia of RBI looks like, and they are asking what is this animal. This animal here, you can easily understand it cannot be an elephant, it cannot be a lion. It looks maybe a lion, but bull or horse, definitely the answer should be between option number 2 and option number 3. The answer is Royal Bengal Tiger. Royal Bengal Tiger, and the tree is palm tree, PALM, palm tree, and the option is Royal Bengal Tiger. Okay, let's move on. Under which section of Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, the RBI has the exclusive right to issue currency notes in India? We know that RBI is the only body in India which issues currency notes. Yes, earlier, Government of India, Ministry of Finance used to issue 1 rupee currency notes, and rest all currency notes were issued by RBI. But as we know, this 1 rupee currency notes are discontinued now. We have only 1 rupee coins, which are also prepared by Ministry of Finance but issued by RBI. So the circulating agency is RBI, but it's manufactured by Ministry of Finance. So coming back to this question, under which section Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, the Reserve Bank has exclusive right to issue currency notes in India? Now see, there are a number of sections. Do we need to study all the sections? Absolutely not. Actually, it is not practical. The options are quite, judiciously kept so that you know the important sections of the RBI Act 1934. The answer for this question is section 22. So it empowers RBI and gives the exclusive right to print and circulate currency notes in India. Whereas section 24, you can please take it down, section 24 talks about the maximum denomination of currency note which can be printed, which is 10,000 rupees. 10,000 rupees is the maximum denomination of currency note which can be printed. Section 26 talks about the legal tender character of Indian banknote. Legal tender, T-E-N-D-E-R, legal tender, T-E-N-D-E-R, character of Indian banknotes. Okay, Section 28 of the rule or act allows RBI to form rules regarding the exchange of damaged or soiled notes. Section 28 of RBI Act 1934 allows RBI to form rules. RBI can make a new rule, amend the existing rule regarding the exchange of destroyed or maybe damaged or soiled or torn currency notes, and how to exchange, what is the protocol. This is mentioned in Section 28. Section 30 of the RBI Act, empowers the government to supersede Central Board of RBI. Empowers the central government to supersede Central Board of RBI. That means in case of there is some issue, some problem with the RBI management, the central government, using this power of this particular section, can take control of the board of RBI, supersede the Central Board of RBI. So answer for this question is option number 1, Section 22. Section 22 is the answer for this question, which gives the exclusive right to RBI to print currency notes in India. Let's move to the next question. Alright, let's move to the next question. Bharat Financial Inclusion Limited, BFIL, has facilitated financial transaction worth over 100 crores through its wide network of Rural Distribution Service Points, RDSP, in Karnataka, Odisha, Maharashtra and Bihar. BFIL is a part of which of the following banks? The answer is IndusInd Bank. BFIL is a part of Industrial Bank. Now the details about these banks we will be discussing in one of our later slides. So let us move to the next question. India's biggest rural technical festival, titled Anthapragyan 2020, was held in. So it was a rural festival, technical festival, and the venue of this is Telangana. The festival was held in Telangana. Option number 3. This question is discussed in one of our last sessions. Which among the following institutions had developed India's first indigenous antibody-based testing kit called COVID Kavach ELISA? Now, ELISA is a testing methodology. It's a kit-based testing methodology. It is based on antibody. So whenever any virus attack our body, our immune system develops an antibody, and that antibody is tested in the kit, which ensures the presence of that particular virus. For malaria, typhoid, this type of diseases, we have already seen the use of ELISA kit. Now for COVID-19, this kit or similar kit, which is known as rapid testing kit. Rapid testing kit was imported from China, and it has been found a little faulty, and as ICMR claims that this is not quite sensitive and not reliable. Then India decided to develop similar kits indigenously, and National Institute of Virology, Pune, which has successfully developed the kit which is named as COVID Kavach ELISA. This kit is already in mass production. Gujarat-based company called Zydus Cadila is given the responsibility to produce the first lot of this kit. And it is claimed that this is more reliable and sensitive yet faster, and presently whatever tests are taking place across the country are through COVID Kavach ELISA. This is a blood test, not the swab test. Remember, this is a blood test, so using the blood this has been tested. Okay. Let's move to the next question. The new development bank of BRICS. BRICS we know like G7, G20, SAARC, similar body, BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They have made a developmental bank like Asian Developmental Bank, which has been named as New Developmental Bank. Fully disbursed a US $1 billion emergency assistance loan to India to help it contain the spread of COVID-19. Who among the following is the head of the New Developmental Bank? Development Bank. Among the options, if you look at all these are quite famous name in the banking sector. Y.V. Reddy, Y. Venugopal Reddy is ex-governor of RBI, a famous economist. Urjit Patel, earlier the deputy governor, and then later became the governor of RBI, and the last deputy governor of RBI before Shaktikant Das. K.V. Kamath, after 1994, when ICICI Bank was formed, he was the founding director and CEO of ICICI Bank, a very renowned banker. Served in quite important, very important positions, and the answer for this question is Mr. K.V. Kamath. Mr. K.V. Kamath, a very renowned name, and presently he is the head of New Development Bank, K.V. Kamath. Chanda Kochhar, again an ex-CEO of ICICI Bank, Chanda Kochhar. She is the ex-CEO of ICICI Bank. Dr. D. Subba Rao, again an ex-governor of RBI. D. Subba Rao, ex-governor of RBI. So among the options, Y.V. Reddy, Urjit Patel, D. Subba Rao, they are ex-governors of RBI. Answer for this question is K.V. Kamath. You can see the image of Mr. K.V. Kamath is shown over here. Let's move to the next question. In partnership with Facebook, which ministry has recently launched an initiative called the GOAL, Going Online as Leaders, to provide mentorship to youth through the digital mode? Now, this is a recent initiative to provide mentorship to youth through digital mode. The initiative has been taken by Ministry of Tribal Affairs. Ministry of Tribal Affairs. The name of the ministers are given over here. You can get it from the e-book format. I'll not spend time on this slide. Some of the names have been already discussed. Dr. Harshvardhan is very important in today's perspective. He is also the Minister of Health and Family Welfare, Dr. Harshvardhan, and Science and Technology. So in today's context, the very important name. Ministry of Corporate Affairs is Minister of State Anurag Thakur. Minister of Tribal Affairs, Minister Arjun Munda, and Human Resource Development, HRD, this is also an important ministry. Ramesh Pokhriyal is the Minister of HRD. Okay, let's move to the next one. Which among the following organizations has recently released the Global Forest Resource Assessment? Global Forest Resource Assessment, FRA 2020. Global Forest Resource Assessment is a report which is based on decrease and increase in the forest areas across the world. It talks about how the forest lands are changing, and very interesting, it says in the last 10 years, last 5 years, 2015 to 2020, there has been a decrease in the rate of loss of forest area. Quite interesting. There's been a decrease in the rate of deforestation in the last 5 years, and it is mainly because of various sustainable development initiatives taken across the globe. Now, the report is released by FAO, FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization under United Nations. Food and Agriculture Organization under UN. The head office of FAO is in Rome, Italy. The head office of FAO is in Rome, Italy. WHO, again very important, WHO headquarter is in Geneva, Switzerland. World Health Organization headquarter is Geneva, Switzerland, and the Director General of WHO is Tedros Adhanom. Tedros Adhanom is the Director General of WHO. UNICEF and UNESCO. UNICEF head office is in New York and UNESCO head office is in Paris. UNESCO is in Paris. UNESCO head office is in Paris and UNICEF head office is in New York. Okay, let's move to the next question. International Nurses Day is celebrated across the world every year to commemorate the birth anniversary of Florence Nightingale, the founder of modern nursing. We know Florence Nightingale, she is the founder of modern nursing, and to commemorate her birthday, International Nurses Day is celebrated on May 12th every year. May 12th every year. This is why it is in the current affairs question, May 12th every year in the month of May. Among the rest of the options, let's quickly see. September 16 is the UN International Day for the prevention of ozone layer. September 16 is UN, United Nations International Day for prevention of ozone layer. UN International Day for prevention of ozone layer. October 15 is World Students Day. October 15 is World Students Day. In fact, this is celebrated on the birth anniversary of ex-Prime Minister APJ Abdul Kalam. It started India, number of educational institutes in India started celebrating this day as Students' Day because of his love for the students, because of his passion towards teaching, and that's why this day was celebrated in number of educational institutes in India as Students' Day. Later on, this has been accepted internationally and it has become World Students' Day, October 15, on the birth anniversary of APJ Abdul Kalam. December 23 is Kisan Divas or Farmers Day, National Farmers Day or Kisan Divas. December 23 is Farmers Day or Kisan Divas, National Kisan Divas, National Farmers Day or Kisan Divas. It is on the birth anniversary of ex-Prime Minister Chaudhary Charan Singh. Birth anniversary of Chaudhary Charan Singh, ex-Prime Minister Chaudhary Charan Singh. Chaudhary Charan Singh. Okay. As I said, the answer for this question is May 12, and January 14th is in generally Makar Sankranti. Every year January 14th is celebrated as Makar Sankranti in our country. Makar Sankranti in our country. Let us move to the next question. Okay, so Little Richard who passed away recently, was a songwriter, pianist, rock and roll singer. 1 and 2, 1, 2 and 3. Answer is option number 1, 2 and 3. A famous songwriter, is also considered as an architect of rock and roll, and through his long spread career, passed away recently. Little Richard is a songwriter, pianist, and also a rock and roll singer and an architect of rock and roll because of his innovative ways of bringing music to the common people. Okay, let's move to the next question. In an attempt to provide relief against coronavirus, the union government has reduced statutory EPF contribution of private sector employees and employers from the existing 12% to dash for the next 3 months, June, August 2020. Now, as we know, the employees in the private sector, those who are organized sector, they have to pay a certain amount of their basic salary and dearness allowance, certain percentage of that as a provident fund contribution, and the equal amount is contributed by the employer. At present, this figure was 12%. Now, as a step of Atmanirbhar Bharat package, which has been recently announced by Narendra Modi and further detailed by Finance Minister Shri Nirmala Sitharaman, she said that the employees need not pay 12%. Instead of that, they should pay 10%. The answer is option number 5, 10%. So what happens? If they pay 10%, both employee and employer will have some extra money available with them, which they can bring it to the market, and the availability of the liquidity will be more in the system and the market. So this is a short-term measure to ensure there is no liquidity shortage and people have more money to spend, and which will further push the economy towards growth. So answer for this question is option number 5. Option number 5 is 10%. Let's move to the next one. Which among the following body is the apex body of country and has the sole mandate to govern and conduct all activities for both man and women hockey in India? So, like we have in Board of Cricket Control India, BCCI, which is the apex body for all the cricket related activities in the country. Similarly, in hockey also we have a body which is responsible and for all the both men and women hockey in India. Among the options, the answer is Hockey India, HI. Hockey India is the answer, HI. Hockey India is also affiliated to Indian Olympic Association and other, Asian Hockey Federation and other Government of India Sports Authority. So this is affiliated to this, and the body is Hockey India. Formed in May 20, 2009, it is also affiliated to International Hockey Federation, the Indian Olympic Association, and Asian Hockey Federation. The president is Mustaq Ahmed. The president is Mohammed Mustaq Ahmed, president of Hockey India. Please take it down. President of BCCI, as we know, Mr. Saurav Ganguly is at present. However, there is a news that he may not continue because of some rules and regulations. Similarly, the president of Hockey India is Mohammed Mustaq Ahmed. Let us move to the next question. Which authority institution has developed an online dashboard named National Migrant Information System to capture the information regarding movement of migrants and facilitate their smooth movement across the states? So as we know, because of this COVID-19, lot of migrant labor got stuck up in different states and they are moving to their home state. Now, to ensure that the smooth movement takes place through maybe train, bus, or maybe by foot, whatever it may be, to ensure that the smooth movement takes place, this particular dashboard, online dashboard has been created, and this has been done by NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority. National Disaster Management Authority. The chairman of NDMA is Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The chairman of NDMA is Prime Minister. Take it down. The chairman of NDMA is the Prime Minister. Okay. For Niti Aayog, we know the chairman is Prime Minister. The vice chairman of Niti Aayog is Dr. Rajiv Kumar. Dr. Rajiv Kumar, the vice chairman is Dr. Rajiv Kumar, and CEO of Niti Aayog, is Mr. Amitabh Kant. Amitabh Kant, K-A-N-T, Amitabh Kant, CEO of Niti Aayog, Amitabh Kant. Okay, ICMR is very important in today's perspective. Director General of ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, Director General of ICMR is Dr. Balaram Bhargava. Dr. Balaram Bhargava is the Director General of ICMR. Dr. Balaram Bhargava is the Director General of ICMR. Okay, let us move to the next question. Zubair Iqbal has recently been appointed Managing Director MD of which of the following banks? Now, if you look at this question, there are some other thing also you need to consider. Today, if you look at in India, what are the different types of banks we have? We have PSU banks. After merger, there are 12 PSU banks. We have foreign banks. We have RRBs, Regional Rural Bank. We have cooperative banks. And then we have private sector banks. And then we have payment bank and small bank. So let me cover up once again. Look at the types of banks we have. PSU banks. Then we have foreign bank. Regional Rural Bank, that is RRBs. And then we have cooperative banks. Then we have private banks, and then we have payment bank and small bank. Among the private banks, they are categorized in new generation private bank and old generation private bank. A new generation private banks are those which are formed after economic reforms of 1991. And the old generation private banks were existing. Some of them were existing even before independence. After 1991, starting from 1994, there were 7 new generation private banks licenses were given. 7. Those 7 banks are ICICI Bank, HDFC Bank, Developmental Credit Bank, IndusInd Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, Yes Bank and Axis Bank. These were the 7 new generation private bank. Let me repeat it once again. You want to write it down, please take it down. New generation private banks formed in 1994 onwards. The first 2 banks to get formed are ICICI Bank and HDFC Bank. ICICI Bank and HDFC Bank. Then it was UTI Bank, which has been further named as Axis Bank. So UTI Bank was formed, which has been named later as Axis Bank. So we got three: ICICI, SDFC and Axis Bank. Then we have Developmental Credit Bank, DCB, Developmental Credit Bank. Then we have IndusInd Bank, IndusInd Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, and Yes Bank. These were the 7 new generation private banks. Later, almost 2 decades later, 2 more banking license, private banking license were given to Bandhan Bank and IDFC Bank. IDFC later named as IDFC First Bank and Bandhan Bank. So these 2 are also new generation private bank. Whereas if you look at all these 4, Catholic Syrian Bank, Jammu and Kashmir Bank, Federal Bank, RBL, which was earlier known as Ratnakar Bank, South Indian Bank. Okay, these are example of Lakshmi Vilas Bank. These are examples of old generation private bank. The answer for this question is Zubair Iqbal has been appointed as the Managing Director of Jammu and Kashmir Bank. Jammu and Kashmir Bank. Zubair Iqbal appointed as the MD of Jammu and Kashmir Bank. Federal Bank CEO is Shyam Srinivasan. Federal Bank CEO is Shyam Srinivasan. Shyam Srinivasan. The head office is in Aluva, Kerala. The head office is in Aluva, Kerala. Federal Bank head office. It is a Kerala based bank. Catholic Syrian Bank is head office is in Thrissur. Catholic Syrian Bank head office is in Thrissur. Catholic Syrian Bank head office is in Thrissur. Okay. Jammu and Kashmir Bank head office is in Srinagar. And RK Chibber, RKCHIBBER. So RK Chibber is the current chairman. He was actually RK Chibber, CHIBBER. Chibber was MD and chairman and MD. However, now he has become, the government of Jammu and Kashmir appointed Zubair Iqbal as the MD and RK Chibber will continue as a chairman. Okay. Catholic Syrian Bank CEO is CVR Rajendran. Catholic Syrian Bank CEO is CVR Rajendran. Catholic Syrian Bank CEO is CVR Rajendran. Okay. Bandhan Bank head office is in Kolkata. Bandhan Bank head office is in Kolkata, and the head of this bank is Chandra Shekhar Ghosh. CEO, founder and CEO Chandra Shekhar Ghosh. So let me quickly summarize once again. Catholic Syrian Bank is based out of Thrissur and the CEO is CVR Rajendran. Bandhan Bank is based in Kolkata. The founder and the CEO is Chandra Shekhar Ghosh. Jammu and Kashmir has got a new managing director, Zubair Iqbal, who moved from HDFC Bank. Federal Bank is based in Kerala, Aluva. CEO is Shyam Srinivasan. And RBL Bank, which is also known as Ratnakar Bank, is also an old generation private bank. Let us move to the next question. Which becomes first bank in India to allow video know your customer facility for customers opening savings account? Which becomes first Indian bank for KYC through video conferencing or videos? The answer is Kotak Mahindra Bank. The first bank to start video KYC is Kotak Mahindra Bank. Now, as I just mentioned that there are some new generation and old generation private bank. These four are new generation private bank. SBI is a PSU bank. SBI was actually formed in 1955. Earlier the name of the bank was Imperial Bank of India. Imperial Bank of India in 1955, Imperial Bank of India got nationalized and named as State Bank of India. Mr. Rajneesh Kumar is the chairperson, present chairperson of SBI. ICICI Bank CEO is Sandeep Bakshi. Sandeep Bakshi. ICICI Bank CEO is Sandeep Bakshi. If you look at both ICICI and SDFC, they were existing earlier. In fact, ICICI was formed way back in 1955. And it was an initiative of World Bank, Government of India, RBI to form ICICI. And if you look at the name itself, Industrial Credit and Investment Corporation of India. Industrial Credit and Investment Corporation of India. So the idea of this organization, or the main objective of forming this organization, was to provide industrial credits or industrial investments. So you can understand they already had a very good asset base, mostly industrial asset base, and a strong presence in the country. However, in 1994, when new licenses were issued to the banks, ICICI got the license and they got converted to ICICI Bank. Similarly, HDFC, Housing Development Finance Corporation. Housing Development Finance Corporation was also existing earlier, and they were actually very strong in terms of housing finance. They also got an approval from RBI in 1994, and in January 1995 they started operation as a bank. The present CEO is Mr. Aditya Puri. The head of SDFC Bank is Mr. Aditya Puri. In terms of market capitalization, SDFC Bank is the largest bank in India. In terms of market capitalization, SDFC Bank is the largest bank in India. Kotak Mahindra Bank, founder and the head of Kotak Mahindra Bank is Mr. Uday Kotak. Uday Kotak. An answer for this question is also Kotak Mahindra Bank. Axis Bank, earlier it was UTI Bank. Later it has been renamed as Axis Bank, and this is also one of the new generation private banks. Presently the CEO of Axis Bank is Amitabh Chaudhary. Presently the CEO of Axis Bank is Amitabh Chaudhary. Amitabh Chaudhary. Let's quickly recap. ICICI Bank CEO Sandeep Bakshi, HDFC Bank Aditya Puri, Kotak Mahindra Bank Uday Kotak, SBI there is no CEO, it's a chairman Mr. Rajneesh Kumar, and Axis Bank is Amitabh Chaudhary. Axis Bank CEO is Mr. Amitabh Chaudhary. Let us move to the next question. Which state government launched Charan Paduka campaign for the migrant labourers? Charan Paduka campaign for the migrant labourers. So under this scheme, what happens? Those migrant labourers who are migrating from one state to another state, rather they are repatriating, they are coming back to their states because of this COVID-19 pandemic. So the government of Madhya Pradesh has brought this scheme under which those laborers who are traveling either train or by any means, if they are traveling barefoot, so the government will provide them shoes or slippers or sandals. That's why it's called Charan Paduka campaign. It has been launched by the government of Madhya Pradesh. On 19th May, this particular scheme has been launched, Madhya Pradesh. Okay. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Thiru Edappadi K. Palaniswamy, Karnataka CM is Mr. V.S. Yedurappa, and Madhya Pradesh CM is Shivraj Singh Chauhan, Bihar Nitish Kumar, Maharashtra Uddhav Thackeray. We discussed this in earlier slides, so you can get it in your ebook, as well as you can anytime search it. CM of Madhya Pradesh, Shivraj Singh Chauhan. Karnataka CM is B.S. Yedurappa, and CM is of Tamil Nadu is K. Palaniswamy. Alright, let us move to the next question. Who became the Director General of the which has received license from Central Bank of Russia Federation, Bank of Russia, to commence reinsurance business in India? Who became the new Director General, DG of Realtors body, National Real Estate Development Council? This is you can say it's an association of all the real estate development, real estate companies in the country, and National Real Estate Development Council. They are looking after the various policies and various rules and regulations for the real estate sector in the country. The answer of this is Mr. Rajesh Goel. Option number 4, Mr. Rajesh Goel. Among the options, if you look at Mr. P.K. Sinha is a IAS officer, retired IAS officer, and also extended his tenure by the PMO, and presently he is working as the additional principal secretary to the Prime Minister, PM Sinha. Mr. Ramesh Sopti is an ex-MD and CEO of IndusInd Bank. Mr. Ramesh Sopti is the ex-MD and CEO of IndusInd Bank, and the new MD and CEO of IndusInd Bank is Sumant Katpalia. Sumant Katpalia. The new MD and CEO of IndusInd Bank is Mr. Sumant Katpalia. Sumant Katpalia. Mr. Ramesh Sopti is the ex-MD and CEO. Devesh Srivastava has been appointed as the chairman of GIC, General Insurance Company India Limited. GIC, Devesh Srivastava is the chairman of GIC, Managing Director, Chairman and Managing Director of GIC. Arun Kumar Jha is the Director General of National Productivity Council. Arun Kumar Jha is the Director General of National Productivity Council. National Productivity Council. So answer for this question is Rajesh Goel. Let me summarize once again. P.K. Sinha is an IAS officer, presently working as the Additional Principal Secretary to Prime Minister. Additional Principal Secretary to Prime Minister. Arun Kumar Jha is the Director General of National Productivity Council. National Productivity Council. Devesh Srivastava is appointed as the chairman and managing director of GIC in December 2019. In December 2019, he has been appointed as chairman of GIC, General Insurance Company of India. Let us move to the next question. Which has received the license from Central Bank of Russia, Russian Federation, Bank of Russia, to commence reinsurance business in Russia? As we heard of the word called refinance in the sector of banking, where it's a finance to the banks, it is similarly refinance. Similar to refinance, we have reinsurance. It is mostly insurance of the insurance companies, and in India this has been performed by General Insurance Company of India. Remember, this is a global reinsurance company, and this is the most important reinsurance company for all the general insurance companies in India. GIC is actually, before 2000, it was the father figure of all general insurance companies of India. If you look at it, it used to have 4 subsidiary companies. As we heard of, National Insurance Company Limited, New India Assurance Company Limited, Oriental Insurance Company Limited, and United India Insurance Company Limited. For all these 4 companies were actually subsidiaries of GICL. Now later on, in 2020, when IRDA Act was passed, 2020 IRDA Act was passed, this subsidiaries became independent, and all these companies are now PSUs under Government of India. However, the role as a reinsurer remains same, and it is still with General Insurance Company of India. So the answer for this question, which has received the license to commence reinsurance business in Russia, the answer is GICI, General Insurance Company of India. Now LIC, Life Insurance Company, if you look at LIC is like the largest life insurance company in our country. The chairman of LIC, Mr. M.R. Kumar, SBI Life, Mahesh Kumar Sharma, IFCO Tokyo MD and CEO, Mr. Varendra Sinha, and New India Insurance CMD, Atul Sahai. So it will be anyway available in your ebook format. So please, you can take it from there. You don't need to write down all these names. But please remember, in the context of the bank exam, the chairman of LIC, Mr. M.R. Kumar, this name is very important. And obviously GIC is also important, right? M.R. Kumar, chairman of LIC, Life Insurance Company. Let us move to the next question. Who is the author of the book titled Wuhan Diaries, Dispatches from a Quarantine City? The answer for this question is Fang Fang, a very renowned author of China. It's an online diary. After this COVID-19 pandemic started in Wuhan city, he started writing this one. So book authored by Fang Fang, Wuhan Diaries, Dispatches from Quarantine City. Option number 5 is the answer. Let's move to the next question. Which country has topped a new survey conducted by World Breastfeeding Trends Initiative, WBTI, on breastfeeding support policies and programs? The answer is Sri Lanka. The index or the initiative has been topped by Sri Lanka. Answer is option number 1. Thank you.